Earnestly podcast here on a Friday afternoon here in South Florida. The weekend's here. Well, I don't have to work tonight, but beyond that, the weekend's here, and I'm looking forward to it, of course. Game 4 is tonight. We got a lot to talk about on the podcast today. First off, these finals have been really good. I won't lie. NBA finals are really good. And I think tonight is going to be the tilting point of this series. If, Kevin Durant's not playing Game 4 tonight. Klay Thompson is playing Game 4 tonight. So that helps Golden State's chances, definitely. This is obviously a must-win for Golden State. And I would still say it is still a must-win for Toronto. If they can somehow grab a chokehold on the series tonight, then Game 5, I believe on Monday, they can wrap it up and win the first title. But the series has been fascinating because a lot of the talk for much of the last few months and even this season in general when it comes to Golden State, that if what happens to Kevin Durant's future if the Warriors win the title this year, or they don't win the title this year, will Durant leave regardless of if they win the title or not? I gotta tell you, I'm not as definitive now in my position now, especially now how the series has played out. If the Warriors lose the series, doesn't that actually kind of bolsters Durant's chances to come back to the team? I mean, think about it. Because I remember when Durant got hurt in the Houston series, Game 5, then the Warriors proceeded to win, finish up, close out Game 5, win Game 6 on their own in Houston, sweep Portland, in the next round, and all the talk was, well, if the Warriors win, this just proves they don't need him, and Durant can just go away and goes to his next challenge. But I'm starting to wonder if the Warriors lose the series, and obviously, not having Durant has definitely hurt them. I mean, certainly not having Durant. If Durant played the series, I mean, maybe this is a different series. I mean, I would dare say it is. I mean, no insult to Toronto fans who may think differently, but if Kevin Durant's on the basketball court, that changes the way you look at the Warriors team. I mean, tremendously. So it's one of those things where all of a sudden the conversation might be shifting a lot after tonight. I'm not entirely sure Durant is guaranteed to go to New York or whether teams are rumored to go to the Clippers or whatever if the Warriors lose the series. If they win the series, I could say, okay, maybe the chances are him leaving are definitely higher. But I don't know. It's weird. I don't know. It's going to be a fascinating. Tonight's game could definitely, set the table for a lot of things in the next couple of weeks. Because if the Raptors win Game 4 on the road, I can't see them losing Game 5 at home. I just can't see it. Even with Klay Thompson in the lineup. I mean, certainly they could do it. I mean, the Warriors done it before. They've been down 3-1 in the past. But the dynamic is different. This is not OKC circa 2016. This is not the same team. This is the Raptors with Kawhi Leonard, who was a assassin, and I mean, I'm gonna say for what it is. Kawhi Leonard right now is better than Kevin Durant back then. It's that simple. Kawhi Leonard right now is an assassin, arguably the best player in basketball. I'm not saying he is definitively, but it is arguable that he's the best player in basketball. So, I don't know. It's a lot to take in tonight's game. Fascinating game tonight. Game 4. Unfortunately, I'll be at work. I'll be able to watch it a little bit, but wish I was home on my comfort of my couch, drinking, eating some wings and whatnot. But, it is what it is. Life happens, and you just got to move forward with that. But I'm looking forward to tonight's game. I think tonight's game is going to spell a lot of answers for what may happen in the next couple of weeks as we head into the off season moving forward. So, a buddy of mine, actually a regular on this podcast. Well, I won't say regular; he hasn't been on the pod in a while. But one of my friends, really, really good friends, James Thompson, JT, we call him. He's been on the show quite a few times, talking about MMA and whatnot on this show. And we've been getting into a little bit of squabble in the last couple of months about who is more valuable to their team, Chris Paul or Klay Thompson. Now, the argument has been more so in their peaks. Certainly, Klay Thompson today, I would say, is more valuable than Chris Paul now. Because Chris Paul's age, he can't stay healthy. Klay Thompson's a much better shooter, impactful on defense, all that. But I've been telling my buddy James, and it's funny because he's a basketball fan, but he's not. Even he'll admit this to you. I'm a much bigger fan of basketball than he is. So it's really one of those things where, like, I feel like I definitely have the better answer here and have the better track record. But I respect his candor and his opinion. He says Klay Thompson. I'm saying Chris Paul in his prime. And the argument we've been having here is that he thinks, obviously Klay Thompson has more, he has more rings. And I don't think it's fair. The question is, in their prime, which player could you or would you want to build your team around? It's an unfair question for one reason. Is that Klay Thompson's never been in a position where he's ever had to be the guy. He's one of the guys. He's been the number 2 guy for most of his career. And when Durant got here, was number 3 guy. You get somebody argue number 4 because Draymond Green's and what he does. What he does to that team, the way he impacts the team, certainly makes a better case for Draymond to be even more important than Klay. So the question to me is a bit unfair to Klay Thompson in a lot of ways because, Klay Thompson has never been in a position where he has to be number 1 guy. One of the reasons why I'm so fascinated about this year, what happens is that, Klay being a free agent and, Draymond and Durant possibly and whatnot, is that what if Klay Thompson did leave the Warriors to go somewhere else? What if Klay Thompson decided to go to, let's see, which team out there that needs an alpha? I don't know, any team. Pick a team, I don't know. Could he be the guy? Say he goes to Sacramento, for example. Can he be the alpha guy? Can he be what Chris Paul was? See, Chris Paul, in his peak, between 2007, 2008, to 2000, I even say through his Clippers years, 2013, 14. Because you can argue he was still a better player, best team player on the Clippers teams with Lob City, even with Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan. Chris Paul has at least, been proven to be a alpha on his team. And Klay Thompson has never been in a position yet to where he can say the alpha. Because prior to Kevin Durant, it was Steph Curry. And now it's Curry and you can argue Durant. So the question's unfair to Klay Thompson in a lot of ways. It's fascinating. I would like to see Klay Thompson, this for the sake of this argument, love to see Klay Thompson play on a team that can use his services, that he could be the main guy. But Klay Thompson to me does not come off as a guy that really wants to be an alpha. Like he's like a guy does not crave to be the main guy. Like he's okay with what he does. Like he's okay with the position he's at. Whether it was before Durant, with Durant, and probably after Durant going forward if Durant leaves this summer. Klay Thompson to me has always been the guy that seems to be very comfortable in who he is in his own skin. I also don't know, if Klay Thompson necessarily is a alpha because judging from what we've seen, again, unfair question because we haven't been able to see him because he has been in a position to be that guy. Klay Thompson cannot create offense. Klay Thompson is a spot-up shooter. Like a lot of Klay Thompson's points he gets is off of driving kick from Steph or Durant or even Draymond. He doesn't create his own shot. Chris Paul, as a point guard, can still create his own shot. Chris Paul, again, and people say, well, Chris Paul has no rings. He never went to conference finals until he was the number 2 guy in Houston last year. But Chris Paul has always won 50-plus games on the team. Now, other circumstances has prevented Chris Paul from getting past a certain point in the playoffs. Certainly playing in a conference where Kobe Bryant was still relevant, was still the number 1 guy. Tim Duncan was still pretty damn good. Dirk Nowitzki. The Western Conference between 2003 and you can argue now is tough. And I'm not caping for Chris Paul necessarily here either. What I'm saying to you is it's unfair to use that against Chris Paul based on the fact that the circumstances have been a lot tougher for him. It's not an excuse, it's just the fact. But also, it's unfair, too, because Klay Thompson has not been in any position to be the guy, the alpha, and all that. So the question has always been, so that's what I keep telling my buddy James, is that it's not that Klay Thompson isn't or isn't better than Chris Paul is that we've never seen Klay Thompson having been the alpha. And that matters. Could Klay Thompson take a team to win 50-plus games with him being the main cog of the team? I don't know. Judging from what I'm seeing how he plays and his skill set, I don't think he can. Only because I haven't been able to see him create the basketball yet. And most guys who are leaders in that way are guys who are able to create offense on their own. Klay Thompson doesn't necessarily create offense on his own. He doesn't do that, really. That's not his game. His game is to be more of a spot-up guy. So, again, it's an unfair question. It's an argument him and I have been having for about, quite frankly, almost a year now. And I still feel like my position still holds. So, I don't know. It's a fascinating question, but to me, it's still Chris Paul. Only because of what we've seen versus what we haven't seen. So, as you guys know, I'm a diehard wrestling fan. I'm actually starting to get back into it again these days, only because of the new federation company, AEW. I've started to peek my head back into the watching current wrestling, which I haven't done in 17 years. But I am a diehard fan, and as you know on this show too, I think I've mentioned quite a few times that right now I'm actually in the middle of a binge, 1997 binge. And I kind of paused a little bit in the last couple of days because I've been watching a couple of the shows and sidebars some of the shows recently, and also starting a new podcast with my friends on this network. We're gonna I've been doing more work on that end topic wise in terms of the project. So one of the things I was thinking about was in watching some of this stuff was about Rushmore. And I've done this many times on the show with basketball players, football players, who's Mount Rushmore of this and that. And I think there might have been one time where I did actually, on my own radio show, I might have actually done this back in 2013, 2014, where I revealed my Mount Rushmore of all-time wrestling greats. Now, it's funny because Mount Rushmore to me signifies not necessarily the most popular wrestlers, but more so it signifies more the most impactful guys who paved a legacy in a way where they were the most influential. You look at Mount Rushmore in terms of like the actual Mount Rushmore that exists here in America, it's presidents actually were the most impactful presidents at that time, or around that between a certain time. So I look at Mount Rushmore as the most impactful, because there are a lot of wrestlers who were probably popular than some others, but they weren't impactful in that way because it may have been short-lived or they had a lot of issues. There's one guy, The Ultimate Warrior, for me, for example, was one guy that, as much as a dick as he was to people behind the scenes, he was actually very popular. Like, his popularity rivaled Hulk Hogan's for a long time, and actually was on par, if not in some cases even bigger, for a little while in 1990, 89, 90-ish. But it never sustained because the Warrior, because of his own issues, getting fired multiple times by the WWF, WWE, whatever to call it. So it was one of those things where, and then a lot of people also use Mount Rushmore as their personal, well, these are my favorites. Okay, I get it. There are guys that can be your favorites that not even considered Mount Rushmore. But to me, Mount Rushmore has always been who have been the most impactful wrestlers, of all time. So I did put this on Twitter. There was actually a lot of, I might actually pull it up now. I've got a chance though. But my Mount Rushmore, for example, was fairly easy, I guess, because I've always taken this pretty serious. But my Rushmore, of course, Hulk Hogan is the biggest. To me, Hulk Hogan for me, and you can say Austin was more popular at his peak, and that can be argued, of course, even The Rock, to some degree on that. The reason I always say Hulk Hogan is the greatest wrestler of all time, sports entertainment, is that he influenced the game. He changed the game twice. First with Hulkamania from 84, 92, 93, and pretty much put wrestling on the mainstream. Pretty much made it to where it was part of the conversation every day in our world. And then he did it again, leaving WWF to go WCW, not with as Hulk Hogan, but as the NWO Hollywood Hulk Hogan. And it was then where the ratings also flipped. There was no one ever thought that, even when the days when the WWF was struggling for ratings, the business was down for a little while, that was across the whole board. That wasn't just Vince and the company. It was across the entire board. And when the NWO started out for the first year and a half, they overtook the ratings. And a lot of that had to do with Hulk Hogan. His influence. Hogan changed the game twice. Hulkamania and NWO. As a heel and as a babyface. So to me, Hulk Hogan for me is definitely, no matter how you slice it. And there's some people on my Twitter that when I mentioned this, they were saying they didn't think Hogan should have been there. Like, are you insane? I mean, no. Hulk Hogan changed the game. Mount Rushmore is about most influential, not who you like or who's most popular. It's most influential, and there's no question. Hulk Hogan, Terry Bollea, Hollywood Hulk Hogan was the most influential wrestling superstar in the history of the business. I mean, I gotta be honest with you. If you're saying anything different, then you don't know a damn thing about the business at all. Honestly. So Hogan is there for me. Steve Austin, obviously number 2 for me. It's not in order. It's 4 people, but Austin number 2. Second guy here on my list. Again, saved the business. When WWE was sinking in ratings, and he also was the first guy that truly on a larger level became popular in a way where he was still a heel, but it was a natural turn into babyface, even though his actions in the script, in the storylines, said otherwise. Steve Austin was a heel. even in the days when he won a title, he was still a heel. But the fans ate it up. So it was a babyface by virtue of how the fans received him. But Stone Cold Steve Austin was a heel. He was a heel, period. So there's no question about that. But again, blurring the lines between reality and fantasy, blurring the lines between right or wrong, good and evil. Steve Austin was the first to do that. Ric Flair is another one on my list. And Ric Flair to me is, the reason why I have Ric Flair on here is this. He kept the NWA, WCW, above water as much as he could. His influence now, especially in pop culture, and it's funny, Ric Flair can be argued as one of the most popular wrestler today. He's more popular now than he was in his wrestling days. And it's amazing because no one would have thought that, really, when you consider where he came from. He had a few runs in WWF. He had a run early in 1991, 92. He had a nice little run, but it wasn't, I mean, that's when the business was starting to go down anyway. But he was never considered number one guy in the company still, but still Hogan. He got a couple of title runs. He co-headlined WrestleMania 8 with Macho, as well with Hogan and Sid. But he was never the number one guy, clear cut. Yet his legacy moving forward he's huge. Like the news of him getting sick last week, and even a couple of years ago when he almost died. That news was worldwide humongous, And to me, it's a testament to Ric Flair staying consistent. To me, Ric Flair would be like the Tim Duncan of the wrestling Mount Rushmore. Like he was never, the utmost most popular guy in the business. That was Hogan. That was probably Savage at some point. That was probably guys like Bret Hart. That was guys like Austin, of course. But Ric Flair was always consistent enough to keep his name on your radar. And now in 2019, he's arguably one of the most biggest names in the history of the business. He's more popular now than he was back then. The fourth guy it's interesting because it's my favorite guy of all time, but it's also, you can make a case for other guys here in the spot. I did put the Macho Man Randy Savage in here because I think Macho Man Randy Savage was the first, like Austin, on a small level, was the first guy that blurred the lines. He was so good in the ring with promos. He was of these four guys, I would say he was the best combination of the four. Like, he was a better wrestler than any of these guys. He was probably just as, if not better than anybody has promos. Although I would argue all four of these guys are great behind the mic, honestly. But Savage did all of it great. Macho was not only entertaining out the ring, he was entertaining in the ring. Look at WrestleMania 3, his match with Steamboat. I mean, that's all you need to know. But there's other great matches there besides that. One match I referred you guys to also. He did a match with Bret Hart on Sunday Night Main Event, November 1987. That does not get enough love. That match was amazing, and it's sad that they really push more Bret Hart Macho Man matches in the future beyond that. It's really sad because that match was amazing. Savage carried a lot of guys. I mean, his match with Warrior in Mania 7, for example, where look, Warrior's in ring work is not great. In fact, arguably terrible. Macho carried that match. You can say Macho carried the Hogan match in Mania 6. Although Hogan, again, Hogan could do his own. I mean, Hogan is what he was, but Macho made that more. To me, the reason I have Savage in here is because Savage was the guy that, did it all great. In ring, out ring, you name it. He also had the clothes, the costumes, and he was the look, iconic. He was the most iconic, really. Now, the only guys I would probably put in the conversation with Savage, like, I could say John Cena, but I wasn't watching wrestling when John Cena was came into the scene in 04 and beyond. I understand how big he is now, and I get it, but I wasn't watching wrestling, so I can't really put my stamp on John Cena necessarily. The Rock, obviously, but I've always said The Rock, as big as The Rock was, to me, The Rock was always better as number 2 guy behind Austin. To me, The Rock, I don't know, I want to insult The Rock. The Rock was great, and he carried the company too, and also went out in 99 with his neck injury again. But to me, The Rock was always, The Rock didn't sustain the number 1 guy thing. I think the business as a whole was so big that even The Rock, I mean, and again, it's not against The Rock, but he's in the conversation. But I think he benefited a lot from the business, being where it was. And I think the same thing with Savage to some degree also. Savage got a lot of Hogan love, the Hogan dust. The Rock got a lot of the Austin dust. But The Rock, the difference between The Rock and anybody else on this list is The Rock had the personality. He had the aura. He had, and look, The Rock right now is the biggest movie star right now in Hollywood. Who would have thought that? I mean, some other people said Andre the Giant. Certainly, that's a conversation to be had. I know some said Bret Hart. I'm looking for some of the tweets I got throughout the week about this because this was a big deal on Twitter this week. I'm looking for some right now. There's one guy here, for example, that said, my friend Brian said, he said Flair, Austin, Cena, and The Rock. I don't know. Again, the Cena thing I can't relate to because I wasn't watching with Cena. The Rock, I mean, again, you can make a case there. It's not a bad list actually, to be honest with you. One guy on Twitter at Chris_Knox said Andre, Hogan, Rock, and Austin. Okay, I have no issue with that necessarily. I say Andre and The Rock are the 2 guys that I didn't put in my list. Let me see. One guy said Razor Don 1 said Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold, and The Rock. Then he said Ric Flair and John Cena def up there, but so many other players in the conversation: Undertaker, Roddy Piper, Triple H, Savage, The Warrior. Yeah. I mean, again, a lot of guys you can consider. Don Juan says Steve Austin, Shawn Michaels, Taker, The Rock, and our mention for Triple H. I mean, a lot of guys you consider in here, man. A lot of guys consider in here. One guy at Joe_Dirt87 said The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Goldberg, and Hogan. Hogan's getting his love. I mean, Hogan's still getting a lot of love in here. But again, the reason I kept putting Undertaker in there, Undertaker to me was an attraction. He wasn't necessarily a guy you built around. He's an attraction. I mean, and that's obvious. That's obvious by the way how many titles he won as a wrestler. He didn't have a lot of title reigns because he was a guy that didn't need a title. He was an attraction more than anything else. Some guy put Tom Feeney, Tom Boy 0 on Twitter said Hulk Hogan, The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, and Bret Hart. I mean, again, Bret is an interesting one because Bret is probably the second tier guy. Bret was the number 1 guy for a little while, but Bret wasn't great on promos. Although I could argue Bret's 1997 was amazing though. His 1997 is I'll put Bret Hart's 97 with any wrestler in the history of the game, honestly. So, let me see. Ryan Michaels said Hulk Hogan, Andre, Austin, Hart. I don't know. I respect Bret Hart a lot. You know what guy I might have put ahead of Savage is San Martino. Bruno San Martino, because Bruno San Martino was before Hogan. He was the guy that was the biggest guy in the company, the biggest guy in the business before, the golden era, we call it. So, I don't know. It's a lot of guys. A lot of kids be made with a lot of guys, but to me, as long as your list has Hogan in there, love him or hate him, he changed the business. So you get no argument there from me. So I've been binging a lot in the last couple of days, last week or week and a half. I mean, not just wrestling, obviously, my wrestling binge, which I'm still going on right now. But one of the challenges my wife and I have had in recent years, especially in the last year, is, and this is something her and I used to bond a lot. We used to bond on a lot back when. We used to love doing TV binges. Before we had kids, that's what we used to do all the time. I remember there was one vacation we had where Lauren and I, we did a staycation, which is actually staying home from not really traveling anywhere, just staying home. We took a whole week off from work. And we had never watched the HBO's Entourage. And we decided to watch the entire series. At the time, it was toward the end of the last season was actually on TV at that time. And we binged the entire series, ended up being eight seasons, but at the time it wasn't out yet. We watched 7 seasons in a span of, I think it was like 4 days of Entourage. It was crazy because we used to what we did was we ordered pizza. We didn't go anywhere. We did the only time we left the house was to walk the dog or to get food. And honestly, we just ordered takeout. We ordered pizza, whatever. I mean, it was crazy. And we just binged the entire series of Entourage. So binging for us has been harder now because of having kids, and in our work schedules too, especially, it makes it even tougher. So what we've done, and really in all ways, the jobs we have is great. We have multiple breaks we can take. We get. So what we've done is that she'll watch if there's a show we're watching still that we really want to watch and make sure we can get through it. She'll watch on her breaks. I watch on my breaks or at home. Just to stay and try to stay pace with each other. We're not watching together in the same room necessarily, but we'll at least get to see what's going on. And the reason why we do this too, because there's so many shows out there we want to watch, and so many shows that we're behind on, that the only way we can make great traction on this is to maybe watch some shows away from each other and just talk about it later on. And so we did that this week with a show on Netflix called Dead to Me. It's with Christina Applegate and Linda Cardellini, I think her name is. It's a show that I saw on preview it was promoted on Instagram, it was promoted on Twitter, and it looked interesting for me. And then my wife kept saying, "Oh, you're not gonna like that show. It's not your kind of show." And proved it wrong because I loved it. It was a really good show. Definitely dark comedy. I don't know. It was interesting because the show went in so many waves. It's about a woman who loses her husband in a car accident. And then this other woman befriends her at a grief seminar or a grief thing, gathering. And then, lo and behold, the woman that befriended her is actually the woman that actually killed her husband in a car accident, and actually just didn't, and covered up all that. But there's a lot more that goes in the show. Like, to me, the show was like it on the surface, it's like, oh, what's making sense? Okay, how can you make a show out of this? Something so simple. But there's so much more to the show than just that storyline. They become great friends. Chris Applegate's character has a lot of anger issues, whereas the other Linda Cardellini, her character is a little more, let's say, touchy-feely, lovable, extrovert, if you will, and somehow their friendship was great, but that secret she has that by her that her killing her husband, which as you go through the show you see why it happened, the emotions behind it, and all that. But the show was great. We finished it literally, I would say 1 day, maybe 2 days. Really 1 day, to be honest, because I remember watching starting at about midnight on Tuesday. And we finished it at 1 a.m. on Thursday morning. So it was one of those things where wow, it was quick. And it's simple. It was 10 episodes, 30 minutes or less. And it's easy to get through. Simple to get through. So I love the show. It was great. And the show goes to so many so many ways. It's not what you think. It's a lot more nuance in the show than people realize. The show's already been picked up for second season as well too. So looking forward to that. I guess next year when it comes out. So this, the only way her and I can get through the binges now as a couple is to do this. Like, there's shows that her and I don't agree on, and if the shows we don't want to watch together, I'll watch my own at some point. We also started Chernobyl on HBO. Chernobyl, of course, is the true story actually of the nuclear explosion that happened in 1986 in Ukraine. And it's a real story with fictional storylines within the story. Some of it's fictional anyway. And we are right now about 2 episodes in on the show. There's about 3 more to go. About an hour each, a little over an hour each. Excellent, very intense so far watching it. I think her and I are going to review the show, as well as that to me probably as well, on our other our podcast when we launch that in a few weeks. But yeah, that to me, definitely recommended by me. Chernobyl, 2 episodes in, love it so far. I'll probably talk more about it in the coming days when we do more shows here. But yeah, I've been binging like crazy, man. I'm trying to get through a lot of these shows we're behind on, and there's some of these shows I want to watch. So, and we're finding ways to do it. Last thing before I go, this week was the first week of summer for me. Well, really for my oldest son Eli, who's 6 years old. He just finished kindergarten this year. He'll be starting first grade in August. And one of the challenges I started to realize, it started last year to some degree, and this year, is finding ways to keep him and my son occupied. As you know, as I said before, my wife and I have, pretty weird schedules where, like, we don't have a day off together. We sacrifice that to avoid paying for daycare. So, pretty much every day, there's a day like today where I'm working today, she'll be home with the kids, and then vice versa. Then the weekend, I'll be home with the kids, and she'll be working. It's the sacrifices you make, to, save money, obviously, and to also make sure all the bills are paid and whatnot, and also to make sure we are still connected with our kids. So the summertime is here now for my oldest son, again, starting first grade next year, and I'm trying to find ways to keep him occupied, but cost-friendly ways to keep him occupied. I mean, certainly we can put him in summer camp and other things, but I don't feel comfortable doing that right now just yet with him, for some personal reasons. I won't get into that. It's just personal reasons. But finding things to do to keep him occupied more so. The 2-year-old is what it is, because he doesn't know what time of day is, obviously. But my son, Eli, is finding ways to keep occupied. So, take him to the pool more often throughout the summer. Take him to his grandparents, maybe for a day or two, just kind of keep things different. Like last year was a little different. The reason why I wasn't as stressed about it last year in comparison to this year was that last year when we had just moved into this new house, so everything was so new that he loved the house so much, and he still loves it now, that he didn't want to leave the house much anyway. So it was a lot easier just to stay home and do the same old that we do every single day. But this year now, he's a year older, and he wants to do other things now, and finding things to do. But finding cost-friendly things to do also, too. I don't want to just throw money at things just to keep him occupied. I want to find things that will keep him occupied that's cost-friendly, but also, edifying and also good enough for him that he'll enjoy. So looking through things to do. Obviously, what I do with my kids, sometimes we'll go to grandparents' house, we'll go to visit family, we'll go to the pool. But there's other things that I'm trying to figure out what we can and should do for the summer. It's challenging because, again, when we have opposite schedules, like, we can plan little 2-day getaways with the family, and that'd be cool with me, the wife, and the kid. But of course, that requires taking days off from work and all that, and which we have no problem doing. But it's just one of those things where this is where the shift of life, and this is why also with the podcast too, like, it's a challenge. This is why I started to do less shows in the summer, because I want to put more time and focus into my children. I used to, before maybe last year or this year, I used to just go full speed ahead, fifth gear, boom, amount of shows, this and that, doesn't matter. And that's more to feed me and feed my ego and feed my needs. But as a father, I need to still be there for my children. And as they're getting older now, it's a lot harder now because there are things now that they want that you have to somehow, to some degree, have to meet them halfway. 3 years ago, been different. They were both their babies, so now not so much. So that's one of the challenges for me now is finding ways to keep him, entertained in a way, but also, I don't want to spoil him to a point, but he needs to be occupied. Both my kids need to be occupied, for that matter. That's why you started seeing less shows recently, because I've been trying to get down and figure out what is best for them. And a lot of it too is also they want time with me. They want me to take them out places, and so I have to reprioritize the things I do here at home to some degree. Same with my wife, same thing. So those challenges that, and we're gonna figure it out, and we are figuring it out. And we have a couple things I'm looking at doing with him and as a family. I know we have one big trip to Orlando late in early August before we go to school with our family. It's a big family thing we do every year. We're going to Disney for about 2 days, so we'll have that in our back pocket. So anyway, that's enough show today. Anyway, we'll do another podcast probably over the weekend, and we'll see what happens. Join the finals, of course. I'm on Twitter at EJChristian7. Follow the blog, of course, at earnestly.net. Until next time, see ya. Enjoy your weekend.